Right, this is the formation that we've been used to seeing for Liverpool for a lot of this season. You can put your names in and out, but change Luis Diaz for Jota. You can probably change Gakpo and Luis Diaz for that very reason. This midfield's pretty much been our starting midfield. That back line, and then Alisson and Kelleher come and go, and then maybe you've got Conor Bradley there. But broadly, this has been the shape that we've seen laid out on TV. We know it's worked slightly differently, and there's been adaptations. There have been times where the centre forward has dropped a little bit deeper, and the two guys have come up here. We'll talk about that again a little bit more in a second. But broadly, these are, if you were to have to lay out a formation for Liverpool, that's how it goes. This summer, there's going to be quite a few changes in the squad, not least because Trent's obviously leaving, and he's played a very significant role this season. Whilst we've got him here at right back, really, he was more like a kind of quarterback style, kind of roaming around in these kind of areas, just distributing and freeing up Salah, putting Gakpo on his kind of back foot and being able to receive the ball over there. And lots of other playful things that we know we've loved to see from Trent. I mean, obviously that's why we're going to miss him. That's why Real Madrid wanted him. But I think also, I'll be honest, there always seemed to me like there was a bit of a move away from the Alexander-Arnold style of play and more towards that marauding right back, which looks more like C. Bradley. Don't mind that. On the other side, we've clearly seen a change in the way that Robertson plays. Robertson, I think there was a good point in the season where I really enjoyed his play. I think he's had a bit less protection this season from McAllister because of the roaming element of McAllister. But I also think we've just seen him, he's aging as a player and he can be a great leader in the side. But, I think we're not going to see him be a starter for too much longer, put it that way. Kirkes is very much one of the names that's going to come in. That seemed always very assumed to me, and the movement from the back of the team here was always kind of, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And obviously Salah scored a lot of goals this season, but Luis Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, Nunez, Chiesa, and Szoboszlai, McAllister, whilst they've tried to relieve some of that pressure on Salah, they haven't really been able to do that. And that's partly because of the composition of the rest of the team, but also just because some of these guys have been misfiring. Jota talking about running on 80%, all those kind of things. And so we need someone prolific and different in that front line, not only to kind of fill in the pieces that we currently have here, but also to change some of that movement. And so the big chat has been around bringing in Florian Wirtz from Bayer. I've lined up two other formations here that other people have kind of laid out, and I want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to put Wirtz in there because at the moment that says Alvarez. I want to talk about where Wirtz, Gakpo, Salah, Diaz kind of sit. I didn't lay this formation out, but I found it interesting when I clicked on it and I thought, well, what are we going to do with that, right? I think it's interesting to see how everyone sees all these different shapes for Liverpool. And I want to see how Wirtz kind of where he plays, because there's also been discussion around, obviously, I kind of treated him as a 10 when I was first looking at him because that's what he's played as at Bayer, especially if you bring up a chart like this, like the average positions style of chart. This is Florian Wirtz, and the last game against Dortmund, they actually lost that game. But look at him there, really he's playing much more as a left winger. But then if you go and you look at his actual chart of his heat map, he is a left winger and obviously he delivers from corners and those kind of things. But really, would we be looking at him in that capacity? What would we be using him as? Is he ever really going to be able to play a false nine? The false nine still needs to be able to hook the play up. Would we need him to play off someone? Would he play a 10? And that's why I think all of these questions are so really the core of where Liverpool are going to go next. And I think, I'll call it out at the top of this video. I don't think we're going to play that same 4-3-3 next season or the 4-3-2-1 or whatever you want to call it, right? Or the 4-2-3-1, really. Wirtz will come in if he does. I still think maybe we're being used as a bit of a smokescreen for Bayern, try and push their price up a little bit. Wirtz apparently is angry with Bayern. That seems like an unusual headline to put out there. City may still be in for him, but they're cooling their interest because they don't like so many people competing. And it does leave a bit of an open lane for Liverpool to kind of slip into. You really don't need to worry too much about it being Wirtz. We're going to specifically focus on Wirtz here, but what do you think of if we were to just talk about bringing in a 10 or a false 9 and playing them? Well, first of all, that goes back to this formation we had this season gone. These two profiles in Frimpong and Kirkes already playing very differently to Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold on the other side. Kirkes, the ex-number 10 who comes inside and plays out on the wing here, doing those overlapping runs, doing the underlapping runs. Frimpong, very much kind of an auxiliary winger for Liverpool. And every now and again, tasked with doing some defending. Liverpool are anticipating, by the way, being a much more dominant side next year, but also much more adaptable. You call Klopp the Shankly, let's call Slot the Paisley. Liverpool are looking at a shape-shifting, all-conquering starting 11. And that was very much built on this midfield, which they've laid out slightly differently to the way that I would do it. But here we go, right? First of all, I think if Wirtz comes in, you can see either one of McAllister, Szoboszlai, one of those two, being in this kind of a position, much similar to the way that we saw them play against like an Aston Villa at one point this season. Gravenberch still sits a little bit deeper, though if we were to bring in like a Wharton there, that might be quite interesting. See what he does, turn it around a lot quicker, a lot of big names to then distribute to, 3 options essentially, kind of playing like a 10 style role in the team. Similar to the way that we saw Slot's Feyenoord team, where the midfield will kind of rotate. You know, one person would drop a little, one person would drop a little bit deeper, someone else would push up, someone else would push around. I think that's what we're going to see here is a much more adaptable Liverpool side who, in possession, very comfortable. Out of possession, looking to win it back and transition very quickly. A place that Salah feels comfortable, a place that Wirtz feels comfortable, a place that Diaz feels comfortable, McAllister, Szoboszlai. We are that kind of dominant side here who Zoboszlai, yeah. We will become a much more, at least attempting to be dominant side. I think Szoboszlai will drop a little bit deeper along. I'm going to put Gravenberch there because I don't feel comfortable putting in a player that we don't know is going to come to the club yet. Gravenberch there. Still a great player, still an amazing midfield option, right? But that allows Frimpong a lot of latitude. That allows Kerkez to drop inside. It allows these guys to definitely be overlapping runs on Wirtz. And you've already seen like the ripple effect that when Wirtz drops a little bit deeper and becomes this false 9, or we have a different 10 in there, what that does to the rest of our midfield, it brings Salah inside, it brings Gakpo inside, certainly pushes Frimpong and Kerkez a little bit more up. If you've got that false 9, of course Salah's going to get sucked towards them or be doing those outside runs. Same for Frimpong. And it allows someone like Gravenberch or McAllister, most probably if it's Gravenberch there. If it's Wharton there, then that's incredible. But what it allows us to do is distribute the ball out. Like, how many different options do you see there from a Liverpool perspective? Now, a lot of you are going to be saying, how defensive does that make us? Well, first of all, Kerkez is still very much styled as a left back. He's a marauding left back. Not in the same style as Andy Robertson, though I'd imagine, a lot of people have styled themselves on those things. Kerkez is, even more brutish, even more front-footed. Very good at defending, very good at winning the ball higher up the pitch, very much like Frimpong. And again, Liverpool will be looking to impose themselves on the opposition. This isn't heavy metal football, but it is dominant, aggressive football, which also allows Liverpool to drop players a little bit deeper in Szoboszlai there, put Kerkez slightly ahead of him, almost Calafiori style, or what we wanted Calafiori to be if we were an Arsenal player. And then Frimpong is very much an auxiliary winger for me. You would not expect these guys to sit back as part of a traditional back four and just defend. And the reason that when we are then defending, say we do have to drop a little bit deeper and we are on the back foot a little bit, like we were, say, against PSG, is we want to almost fight fire with fire if we're playing PSG. We didn't quite have that this year because Salah didn't really have the space afforded to him because they could just focus on Salah. Through the middle, we didn't really have that firepower. And out on the left, we weren't really focusing there because we could barely get out of our own half. So again, there's a bit of a shift there, right? Moves on to this third formation. Look at that. Suddenly what we're looking at here is, again, fullbacks that push on, Szoboszlai coming into the midfield, Wirtz being like that attacking midfielder, Salah kind of playing off Wirtz, and possibly, by the way, if Liverpool do still, Isak has sort of become a name that's kind of dropped in the rankings or the pecking order just purely because he looks a bit more unattainable this summer. But if we did get another big centre forward or someone for Salah to play off, I think the idea is for Salah to move inside overall, right? And for kind of Gakpo and Diaz to do the same. And then whoever it is in the middle here to be like more of a facilitator. I don't know who that is. We can put any name on it, but I think that frees up a lot of our midfield and shows how dominant we are. Frimpong, again, that auxiliary role. Kerkez, very similar. And suddenly you're looking at a name like Wirtz or Cherki or Xavi Simons coming in and facilitating. They're still a big threat goal-wise. I don't think they've scored a huge amount of goals, but they're still a big threat goal-wise. And whilst Wirtz, Xavi Simons, even Cherki haven't had the all-timer seasons, it's a classic Liverpool signing in any of those names. Wirtz obviously is the biggest spend, Cherki probably the lowest spend, and Xavi Simons somewhere probably on that scale in between. Let me know if you've got any other number 10s that you love. I know a few people in the comments had those. Get in that Discord, get in the Patreon, get wherever in the comments and put those out there. I think it's been pretty fascinating over the last few days to look at some of these different profiles. A lot of people have kind of dropped in there, well, would Wirtz be more like a Firmino, Bobby type for Liverpool? This is Wirtz coming back in against St. Pauli. Like, it's certainly a fascinating execution of what he did again. You can see him kind of wandering, again, a little bit more down that left-hand side, but giving that support to Teller and Grimaldo and Schick up front, whilst also just being able to wander around in this area. Like, look how much of a facilitator he is. If we were to want to put Salah a bit more through the middle, or we want to put, you know, whoever, Diaz or whoever, I don't think we'll try and play Diaz there too much longer, to be honest. I don't mind. I think Wirtz being that facilitator just behind him is very different to what Szoboszlai currently does. And obviously, I think we drop Szoboszlai back into the more like a Xhaka, like an active Xhaka role. And you got Palacios on the other side. Again, whoever's Gravenberch, whoever's Szoboszlai, where do you then put like a McAllister? I think you could play, potentially, Salah in like a Schick style role, or put someone like Szoboszlai there. And you've always then just got Wirtz, someone to play off as a facilitator. I think it really works for me in this Liverpool side. And I get quite excited thinking about it because I do think of the dominance that Liverpool will be able to exert on the opposition with a formation like that. Now, obviously, Wirtz is one of those, you know, he's been an all-time kind of Bundesliga player if he sticks around. If he sticks there at Bayern, I think he becomes like, you know, the new Thomas Muller or the new, I don't think he's so much like a Kroos-style player, but he's that key, you know, he's that kind of pivot player. And Liverpool will be looking to add a number of pivot players to that team. Say we were to have a summer where we were to get Frimpong, Kerkez, Wirtz, and maybe like a Wharton style player. By the way, I thought we got Wirtz, we wouldn't get Wharton so much, but it'd be interesting to see. That completely changes our spine down the middle, and suddenly Frimpong and Kerkez are just freed up and going to be getting balls from all over the place. And you're looking at a much more, again, adaptable side. Do you want to keep the ball? Great. Do you want to pass the ball? Great. Do you want to transition and counter-attack? Great. Do you want to be on the front foot and just be an all-out attacking side? How overwhelming is that going to be for the opposition? Exactly. So, overall, I think a lot of people would be very impressed with Florian Wirtz. Is why he's worth £120 million or something like that, right? If we were willing to spend that on Isak, why not look at the adaptability of a Wirtz? Why not look at what he can unlock for other players within the team? We've spent the money on keeping Salah. Why not try and unlock more of his brilliance? And we saw it. We've seen it kind of played. So I'm not against it. In fact, I actually kind of endorse it. But I love this idea that we're going to change our shape quite significantly, and it is going to divert away from that Klopp era. It's a very abrupt end to the Klopp era, but it's been this long transitional season where essentially Slot has just had his time to get his feet under the table. It probably couldn't have gone any more perfectly winning the Champions League, sure, but like couldn't have probably gone any more perfectly than where we made it to in the end. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If that is Cherki, if that is Xavi Simons, it's different to Wirtz. I think he's the most mobile of the three of them. Cherki probably more of a mercurial player. Xavi Simons more of a like maybe dictator from the middle there. Is he too close to a Maka type role? I will do profiles on those guys if you want me to. Don't know, maybe you don't want me to. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't like my analysis. But I think it changes things fundamentally for Liverpool. And this fundamental change is really exciting. We've already seen it implemented in these last couple of games with the fullbacks and the marauding nature. The way that we've dominated has been very different, and it's caught a few opponents on the hop. But again, if we want to be this adaptable, is it Pep style, is it Klopp style, is it Mourinho style of play? Great. Bring in these adaptable players who are brilliant, creative, and imaginative guys. It's slot ball, guys. It's Arne ball. It's whatever you want to call it. It's probably why someone like Wirtz might have been tempted to come in and change his style a little bit. You know, we've seen him playing that 3-4-3 or like the 3-4-2-1, whatever you want to call that at Bayern. It's very different. That's very unique and bespoke for a player like Wirtz. What can he do playing in maybe a slightly more free role? And how will that impact Diaz and Gakpo? You know, if we were to put Wirtz just very traditionally there, ignore the arrows. That's like such a shift in where the emphasis goes in the game. It's exactly what Slot has done to like put the opponent on the back foot and go, what, we got to deal with Wirtz over here now. Does the midfielder go on that? Does the defender go on that? It confuses people's assignments during the game. It opens up a lot of deep blocks, basically. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'd love to know where your head's at with these kind of plays, these kind of players, and what you overall think of where Liverpool is going to go next season. Do you think it's going to be this radical? Do you think it's going to be this drastic? Does it even feel that radical and drastic? Or are we kind of having our hand forced? Like if we had have kept Trent, would we be able to bring in a Wirtz or whoever? Probably would unlock a Wirtz, be incredible, but that's not my point. Like, would we be able to bring in a Wirtz or someone like that in order to do that? And if we're freeing up these wages, all those kind of things, can we go out there and spend on someone like a Wirtz? Let me know in the comments below. I know that we do have a bit of an issue around homegrown players, so that's why I think we're looking at Wharton and Frimpong and those kind of guys. They tick a couple of those boxes, but let me know in the comments below. I love getting into conversations with people. There's so many great comments I've had over the last few weeks. This probably won't be the last Wirtz video, though he'll probably sign for Bayern tomorrow, right? It's more about exploring the 10. So let me know in the comments below, and I'll chat to you guys in a while. Much love.